All right, Rod and I are live here about 15 minutes after the 49ers just kind of dismantled the Indianapolis Colts there in the second half. A game in which we got to see Phillip Rivers play again. Felt like 2010 for some reason, watching this dude throw non-spirals all over the field, and we still couldn't stop it for the majority of this game. But even before the game started, because the Lions lost on Sunday, the Niners were already in the playoffs. And now with this win, they and Seattle, the Niners even more so than Seattle, control their own destiny. If the Niners win out, they win the division. If Seattle wins out, they win the division. I don't know how it breaks down as far as them and the Rams if people are losing games, but the Rams have the easiest schedule of the three teams left. The Niners have the hardest schedule of the three teams left. So, if the Niners can beat the Bears next week, then it makes that Seattle game super duper interesting. Bears are a good football team, though, so that is not one that you can just put in the win column. But yeah, so this game kind of like there was not that any steam was taken out of the importance, because the Niners obviously have to continue winning if they want to control their own destiny. But being that they were in the playoffs already, I was like, wow, like, this is really turning into a really good season, even if we don't see the Niners necessarily as, a top 3 team in the NFL. But here's how I want to start this when I ask you this question, because we've been talking about this over the last several weeks. The defense is going to be the defense. I'm not sure they're going to be much better than we've seen of late. But the offense, we thought the offense had another level that it could get to. And today, I think, was the best the offense has been all season long. Does this give you any thoughts that if this is the Brock that we see and your guy Kittle got loose like you've been thinking he was going to get loose all season long, CMC went for over 100 rushing, if this is the offense that is truly the 49ers offense, do they have a shot to come out of the NFC?
That's a tall order because of the defense. I just think because of the teams that we would be up against, I just don't know that winning shootouts is going to get you where you get you to Levi, um, the first week in February or whatever it is. But I will, to your point, if they can, even more so than Brock, who was tremendous today, if they can run the ball the way that they ran the ball tonight, it makes it very interesting. I still have questions. I am not sold on Demarcus Robinson. I don't know if Jawan Jennings against good defenses can be your number one receiver. Can you count on Ricky? I don't know that he can be your number one receiver
Mhm.
against good defenses. And then the huge, the $64,000 question is what's going on with George,
Mhm.
because if he's hurt, it makes it. I'm not at this point with this team. I'm not gonna say anything is over because they have just shown themselves to be so resilient. Which, by the way, I spend a lot of time arguing online to the irrational exuberance. I don't mean to be that guy, but sometimes it's just ridiculous. But if we want to, I want to, I you give this team credit for what they have done, and but I just think when you're making all the arguments that I hear about all the injuries, and you know it goes on and on about the record, you can only play the teams that are on the schedule. They've done a good job of winning those games, but the graphic was going around this week about you know, since they lost to Tampa and they lost Warner, what their record is. And I think that's great. But you also have to acknowledge, if we're gonna cover the whole thing, that the teams that they've beaten are 25 and 65. So again, they won the games, and I've enjoyed watching this team, and it has been great. But you have to that context matters, and as we move forward, it will continue to matter. I thought that they would get a better game today than they got. I watched in preparation for today. I watched that Seattle Colts game,
Mm-hmm.
and they looked really good last week. But I don't know what happened with their defense, because they didn't have Mooney or Sauce last week either. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it really seemed to affect. I don't know what affected them. You mentioned as we were coming on that they did not have there was no pressure really at all on Brock.
And Buckner was back today. I know they've been waiting for that dude to get healthy, and he was back today.
Yeah, and they were able. It was almost like Kyle was able to do whatever he wanted. If he When he wanted to run it, they were, Christian at one point, I don't know what he ended up with, but
117. I think he had
and
he had like 65 on 9 carries or something in the first
yeah,
half.
it was 5.6 is what he ended up with. And for most of the first half into the third quarter, his average was hovering around 7 yards a carry.
Yep.
So it was dealer's choice. If he wanted to run it, he could. When they went up, when he wanted to pass it, he had short, intermediate, and deep. It was like dealer's choice, literally. Whatever they wanted, it seemed like was there. And I don't think there's any. I didn't look at it, but and sometimes points can be, that's like a lazy man's way of doing it. But I think this was the best offensive performance of the season, don't you think?
It felt like it, and they talked about it on the telecast, the broadcast. You know what? I I love Buck and Aikman together so much, and
Hmm.
it has not always been like that. Like, Troy, for whatever reason, it feels like the beginning of Troy's career and maybe through the middle of his career, he was so stiff, and now he kinda lets his personality out, and Buck too. Buck was, and Buck has even said this in the past. He said that, I'm actually reading a new book on, Madden and Summerall, and
Hmm.
Joe Buck does the forward of it, and he said, "Early in my career, all I was trying to do was a Pat Summerall impersonation, and I realized that only Pat Summerall could be Pat Summerall. Like, I could not do it, so I actually did have to show some personality." But I love those guys together, and one of the things that they said was the explosive plays, like those over 20 yards, that
Yes.
the Niners were not able to do that for much of the year, and I think in the first half, they had, like, 4 of them alone in the first half,
Yeah,
so
the big
that
one to George. Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
now Shelvin has the thing in the chat about the defense needs to tighten up, and the way that I look at it is the defense is basically gonna be what the defense has been last week and this week, which is they should have taken care of some things so that the game was not as close as it was. Now, D Winters gets a pick six at the end of this game that stretches this thing out. But I think the defense is going to be who they are. They are an average defense. I think they have some young guys who fly around who actually can make some plays in the secondary, but they also don't get anything in the pass rush. So they kind of
Mm.
offset each other. But
Well,
go ahead.
I was pleasantly surprised. People have been shitting on me because I have made the point that I do not disagree that Collins and West are very talented players. But I've been watching their tape all season, and they do things like that. You'll see them split a double team,
Yeah.
or you'll see them crush a guard, but then they don't make a play. Well, today both of them
Yeah.
made plays, and that is one of the reasons why I was so glad that they didn't go hog wild trying to get, replacement level players in here, for a playoff push. You need to let these young guys play and figure out what you've got and let them figure it out, because since these guys, I know Collins missed some time early, but we're getting to the point in the season where these guys are no longer rookies anymore. When we get into the playoffs, now playoffs are different, obviously, but they have 17 games under their belt.
Mhm.
And they have, fortunately, instead of, you know, giving them those reps to the Leonard Floyds or whoever, release guys that had got released or at home, rather than giving those reps to them or sharing those reps with them, they've got them, and they are better now and will be better moving forward. So I mean, that is a good thing, but you are right. um Tatum Bethune was making some plays, and he was at a point where you were saying, well, he is a young guy who is a playmaker, but then he got hurt again.
Yeah.
Um so it was the ankle again. So it seems that that's going to be, because obviously it's not going to get any better in the next month.
Yeah, as he's
Um
playing on it.
if he's out there playing. So that's going to be, what it is. So I think you are 100% right, that this is just kind of what it is. And hopefully, um like, I had read an article today that, where Salah was quoted that, they've long given up on yards, and any of those other really defensive metrics. Basically, they're just trying to keep teams from scoring.
Yeah.
And if you can hold them to field goals rather than touchdowns, um, that's where they're at. They're going to finish in most statistical categories at the bottom of the league at this point. That's just it's just what it is. Um, but you just hope that, to your point, if they can bottle what they brought today, um, through the next month, it could be interesting. It could really be interesting.
And so I do want to. I'm glad you made that point because they did make some plays the middle of the defensive line, and also, I was getting really annoyed with Phillip Rivers not being able to throw spirals and just walking down the field on us, and then I realized that part of what the Colts are doing is because every defense is going like, okay, like Jonathan Taylor is your best player. Your quarterback one is out because of his Achilles tendon. We're gonna force you guys to pass the football. And so
Mhm.
Phillip Rivers, he had a pretty good game. If the defense could have held the Niners a little bit more, I would have thought that Rivers actually had a great game, but they couldn't, and he had to make some throws from behind where, he's not able to throw the football down the field, and any time where he actually has to find a little bit of space in the pocket to give his receivers some time. It just was not gonna happen.
It's
But
painful. It was painful to watch.
but if I give credit now, this is how teams are playing Indy right now. So it's not like Salah like created this thing out of nowhere. Like this is how you have to play them right now. And they did a really good job with Jonathan Taylor. So I want to give them credit for that. However, what my point was that if the defense is what it is now, I think that's how you have to look at it. This is what it is. We're gonna have to win some of these games in the playoffs scoring 28 and 35 points. That's just how they're going to have to do it. And Shanahan, we've talked about his season this year, and he's probably not going to win coach of the year, whatever you think of those awards, but he has had to be a little bit of a chameleon as an offensive game planner this year, first part of the season, no Brock. A lot of teams just keying on McCaffrey, creating, a lot of tough yards in certain situations where instead of going for the touchdown, they were having just to get into field goal position so that Eddie Pinheiro could bail them out. But now that the team outside of Pretty Ricky, obviously he was not there today, but outside of him, they looked like they were almost at full speed. And for Kyle to go, oh, I can call just about any play I want to call right now because of the weapons that I do have. Now, yeah, Demarcus Robinson, is he gonna see the field necessarily on big plays? No, he's probably not unless somebody gets hurt. He was able to step in today and make a big play. Um, Kendrick Bourne, congrats to Kendrick Bourne for getting over the yardage thing so that he made himself 500K today. Great. But nobody's afraid of Kendrick Bourne. So there is something with Pretty Ricky just for the ability for him to stretch the field. And we saw how he did it last week in Tennessee, but we also saw how, all he did was get tackled on his leg and now he's out again. But, it's the kind of tackle that they've kind of outlawed in the NFL for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, man, can your legs stand up for anything? So now I wonder, is this Kyle's biggest flex if he can actually get this team in the playoffs and win a game or two with the kind of defense that they have out there? It might be his best coaching job ever. And this is a guy who's been to 2 Super Bowls. So there's lots of football left, 2 regular season games, then you go into the playoffs. But I do look at it as, man, if we look at Kyle as one of the top guys in the league, and I think Troy Aikman said, if I ever came back to the NFL, this is the guy I'd want to play for. Like, this, and I'm sure, I'm sure he thought that maybe his offensive career is a little different if he had a little bit of a different offensive, coach. But the guy also won 3 Super Bowls, so he can't really complain. But he sees what the Niners are able to do, and he's like, man, that looks like it would have been fun. So I guess the point really I'm wondering about, I don't even know how confident I am in it, but is this an opportunity for Kyle to really, really show out and prove how good of a game planner he is and a game caller? Because if today is kind of like Kyle giving us a little bit of a hint of what is to come, I think it's going to be a fascinating final 2 weeks of the season. And then, we kind of see what happens in the playoffs. Because if the Niners are able to, now in my heart of hearts, I don't feel like this is going to happen. But if they're able to get home the top seed in the West, that changes the dynamics of this whole thing. To be able to play at home and hopefully your health is pretty decent at that point. You get that week off, possibly, if you're one of the top 2 seeds. That is an incredible run from what we thought this team was in the middle of this season.
I 100% agree. And I'm not one that looks back because, it is what it is at this point. But gosh, I wish we could add a quality receiver right about now. It would really change the dynamic because congratulations, Juwan had a great game. Robinson caught that touchdown pass, but they didn't have Sauce and Mooney weren't out there, so they were playing against replacement level corners. So when you look at what the Bears are trotting out there and what Seattle is, gonna run out at us, it's going to be a different challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw them try to get Sky Moore out there. But as Troy mentioned, Kyle said is that, Sky Moore is a different kind of receiver than we are used to having, which I took to mean he's not going to give you much in the block. He's not going to block anything for you. So he just finds it when you're trying to run the ball, he just I just can't imagine he feels comfortable having him out there at all, really, unless he's got a play specifically called for him. And he mentioned that he looking forward to having him back here next year, but I just don't think that that's going to happen. He's going to go. I believe he's going to go the way of Ray Ray. He's going to have a good year as a returner, and somebody's going to pay him more than the minimum because
Sure.
we shown that literally, I looked it up. We've never in their history here, him and Lynch, we've never paid anybody over the minimum. Ray is the most we've ever paid a returner slash receiver, and he was making the veteran minimum, um, which is actually um Sky Moore is making a little bit more than that right now, and I just think he's somebody's going to sign him, and we'll end up drafting somebody, and that's how that'll go. But it's going to be interesting to see how we try to um, juice get some more juice out of the offense, because Jawan is great at what he does, but we we really don't have anybody currently who is like a true X receiver.
Mhm.
So it and we had one, but never mind. It was said. I understand.
Do you think my man was really driving 100 and some odd miles an hour over in Santa Clara? I should have. I'm so close. I probably should have heard his car if he was driving that fast.
Well, but you know what? That we're over there where he's at. I mean, it's like a glorified parking lot over there if it's not game day. So I mean, it's reckless, yes, but with a caveat. It's a public street, but just barely.
He's just
So yeah.
doing it for the clout, man. He's doing it for the
Oh
YouTube.
man, it's these young guys, boy. I just you know it's just it's so
The
frustrating.
Dave Chappelle skit should have never gave you money.
And it is crazy to see. It's but he's getting to the point where he's damn near 28 years old.
Yeah.
Being young is he's not really all that young anymore. I mean, Shador got a reckless driving ticket over the spring, going over 100 miles an hour, but he's like 22 years old, which I mean that doesn't excuse it, but I'm not one who's going to pretend like when I was 21, 22 years old that I wasn't driving a little bit. I never went over the speed. As a matter of fact, I never went over the speed limit when I was 21 or 22 years old. I was at 10 and 2, and obeying. I was 2 miles under the speed limit all the time. Yeah, that's a lie. So
I don't know if my car could have gone 100 miles an hour back.
I know, I'm sure mine could not, but what I was trying to find out how fast it could go. But yeah, it's a little different the older you get. The closer you get to 30, we don't really, and we shouldn't, that's not, your youth is not an excuse. And then I'm not one who's gonna, which is just frustrating to me. I'm not one who's gonna make any kind of clinical diagnosis about what somebody is doing based on my Facebook, um,
Yeah.
my Facebook intake of their behavior. But yeah, I hope that he's okay,
Yeah, me too.
and I know that also what I know is that there's nothing that he has done over the past year that's going to dissuade anybody who believes that he can help them win football games from signing him. If they think, that's just not how we have a long history of seeing that that's not how the NFL works.
Yeah,
If
he don't wanna mess with his guarantee, though, like, you don't wanna give teams the leverage to lower your guarantee because they worry about how you handle certain things, so I would just chill on that stuff so
Yeah,
that you can.
I definitely would, but then it's like, I know Mark Davis will pay him whatever tomorrow. If so, there are always going to be people out there that are willing
Mark Davis would be in
to.
the car with him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I just, I just think Jed. I don't. I would, if I could have a beer with Jed. Picture that. Um, you could have a beer with Jed. That I would wonder why they felt the need to void that guarantee when they did, because it basically. I just feel like that ensured that he was not going to play this season, because why would he? With that carrot off the table, because I believe if you keep the carrot on the table, you're able to convince him to come back and, like, look, for both of us. Look, we know that this marriage is over,
Mhm.
but we can help us both. If you go out there and you play well, it helps us win games, and it helps you rehab your stock. Um, and then we can work something out. We can trade you. Um, you can't trade that contract now with no guaranteed money on it. Who's gonna buy? You're basically trying to sell somebody else your trash. Why would I want to start my relationship with him with that old business when I could just wait till June? Because, like, look, I know, we all know you can't bring him back here, even though you told Mike Silver that now, without the guaranteed money, for example, his contract is only $1 million. That makes keeping him a lot more palatable. Shit, come on now. Nobody's doing this for another year. And so your two options are trading him, and nobody's trading for that contract, or releasing him. So if I know that, I'll just wait till June to trade for him. But yeah, I'm sorry I took us down this road, because there's a lot that happened today that we could still talk about, um, that we could celebrate, um, the good play of the day. Like, we haven't talked about George at all. He was amazing.
Yeah, so Brock, without Brandon Ayuk, was 25 of 34. 295, so just 5 yards short of 300. 5 touchdowns. He did throw that one interception, as they weren't quite burning out the clock. They were interestingly trying to add on. And it almost bit them, but then very soon thereafter, D Winters was able to return a pick six and put the game out of reach. Christian McCaffrey, 21 for 117, long of 24. He scored 2 touchdowns on the receiving end, had 6 catches. And George, 7 for 115 and a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, 5 for 71 and a touchdown. And Demarcus Robinson had the other touchdown. Kendrick Bourne, 3 catches, and like I said, he hit that little landmark. And I think he's got 2 more games to maybe, I don't know what he's got left, like another 150 yards or something. He can get another bonus there. The defense. So you already mentioned Alfred Collins and CJ West both had sacks. The secondary, you saw a lot of Upton Stout, a lot of Malik Mustafa, even a good amount of Luter, who got called for. I don't know. I thought it was a ticky-tack pass interference that he got called for. The biggest reason, if he committed pass interference on that specific play that I'm thinking of, it's because Phillip
But
Rivers underthrew the
pass was
football.
exactly,
and
exactly,
and so it's kind of like, because he underthrew it,
exactly.
Luter was able to bump into the receiver a little bit, but still, I didn't see that at all. And then poor Lenore got a penalty for kind of trying to knock the ball out when the play was over. He got a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Other than that, I thought the game was fairly clean. Um that Brock got hit and fumbled, but Luke Farrell picked it up and ran for a 3-yard gain. Eddie Pinheiro almost hit a 64-yard field goal that hit the crossbar right dead in the middle. I was like, man, that dude kicked that thing with all his might, and he almost got it in. That would have been incredible, by the way, for them to have got that, and then they get the ball back, and then they could have scored again. That would have been crazy. But yeah, it was like from that perspective, it was one of the cleaner games of the season. Again, no Morstead punt. He's just hanging out, like trying to figure out stuff to do with the football and bouncing it and playing games. So, the game, much like last week, we kind of talked about how, the game that last week was a little sleepier than this week, but like there's nothing really to be truly critical of. I would have to go back and look at the tape to see how the offensive line did, because Brock was almost clean. I think he got sacked one time. I didn't even feel like he had to escape very often, like I thought he did a little bit more of last week. So I'm gonna guess, without seeing any of the PFL scores, that the offensive line just played tremendous game as well. So I don't even know what to be critical about, other than maybe Phillip playing as well as he did. But again, like I said, it seemed like that was kind of the game plan, was to let him get his and for them to stop Jonathan Taylor. Was there anything critical on your end that you saw?
Not really. Not, it was a, you know, I've been here all season, so I was not, surprised that we weren't getting any pressure. But that was, that continues to be a source of frustration that we just, and I guess that's, at this point, that's just what it's going to be. So I have to live with it. But yeah, I did not, other than that, really just how um how effective Philip was throwing those ducks early was just, that was, kind of frustrating, because it's like, ugh, well, how is that even getting there? But, you know, he's got, and it was clear that, he is able to, there were several times early that Salah was trying to play games and show him blitzes and, disguise coverages, and that guy, I said that earlier today, is that, y you're not going to trick him, and, he's gonna pass every test when you show him the coverage, and hell, he could probably teach the class. So, I mean,
Mhm.
in terms of trying to fool him, with simulated blitzes and all of that, he just knows where to go with the ball. Now the question is, at this point, is, can he get the ball there? And that, you know, obviously, like you say, even in his prime, he wasn't like out there throwing tight spirals, but right now it was pretty frustrating that they obviously, they talked about during the broadcast, Saleh had said they, even if they weren't able to sack him, they need to at least make him, get him off his spot and make him
Mhm.
move his feet, which, as we saw, there were several times when that was necessary, and it was clear that he was 44 years old
Mhm.
at that point. Yeah, so, but other than that, it was kind of business as usual in my ugly. I kind of do a good, bad, ugly. The only thing that I have on there is injuries. The Tatum Bethune and George, both with the ankles again. I didn't see anything noteworthy. I'll rewatch it tomorrow. I didn't see anything noteworthy really from Kendricks. I didn't really, did he even make the box score? After he
Uh, yeah,
replaced.
he came in there at the end. Um, he did not. Oh, he had
Oh,
2
he had 2
tackles.
tackles.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. But yeah, those are the only 2. So there was really nothing that I could really, if I wanna be really, really petty, I could talk about the fact that Bryce Huff is a good pass rusher and nothing else. He had that one play out there where he was in coverage, and it was painful to watch. That's not his game. If
Mhm.
you're asking him anything, if you ask him to do anything other than rush the passer, he's not very good at it. He's not very good in coverage. He's not really good against the run. But you know, he can do that one. He's a one trick pony, but that one trick is pretty good in the right circumstance. But now that he's in the situation, that he's in a situation where teams can actually double team him, which is not that's not his game at all. He is, built to be outside wide and just a speed rusher. He's not he's not built to see double teams and chips and all that other stuff. So just the situation that we find ourselves in at defensive end just makes it so that even he can't be as effective as he normally would be, because Cleveland Farrell, he didn't get any pressures today. um did Sam do anything really? No, he's got tackles, but no. Well, we had 4 quarterback hits. Oh, and we had the 2 sacks, and that feels like right. It feels about right. He was not under a huge amount of pressure. Um, so yeah, that's just that. That just continues to be frustrating. I was hoping that we would develop something. I'm looking. They said that my man was active, that Gross Matos, but he's not in the box score, so I don't even know if he played.
I didn't see them call his name one time.
Yeah.
So
So
Kittle said in the press conference, he said that he hurt his ankle in the second quarter on a hip drop tackle, which is the same way that Ricky got hurt last week. So he
mhm.
said they taped it up, ankle just kept getting worse and worse and worse. But he believes they avoided the high ankle, which, I mean, this is George Kittle's diagnosis. I don't think he's been looked at yet. So, like, I mean, that's what he's hoping, right? For 100%.
Right.
He's hoping for not. So,
And you have to trust these guys because they know. This is not their first rodeo. You know, obviously the MRI will tell all, but I would trust his initial diagnosis. So yeah, what time is our game next week? Is it a primetime game?
it is
Sunday night?
Sunday night. Yes, Sunday night.
Those are great. Those are always great at Levi.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. At least on television. I mean, it would be a great game to go to as well. So whoever is
Yeah,
going after Robert Ramos is going, that's gonna be a fun one.
yeah. I know. I've a lot of my college roommates were from Chicago, and they're going
They're
to
coming out.
they're going to invade. They're going to invade Levi. Chicago is
Good
going to
time
be
to be
in
a
the
Bears
building.
fan, man. After all the
I'm
years
telling
of
you, good for
dealing with
them,
these,
man.
yeah.
Good for them. They have had a hell of a trip. So yeah, I'm, obviously not rooting for them this week, but I am happy for them and their excitement with the goings on. So yeah, I think that the playoffs start for us next, not technically because we are in, but I think obviously Seattle, if we can win next week, that Seattle game is going to be, as big a playoff, as any play if we both win, and it is for the division and the number one seed. That is as big as a playoff game, really. So yeah, these next few weeks of the regular season are going to be awesome.
So the Bears, great story because they lost their first 2 games this season, and the Lions put 52 on them in week 2. And since
Mhm.
then, they are 11-2. The only losses since then are to the Ravens, and then a couple weeks ago, they lost a close one to the Packers, but then they beat the Packers again this week. So they're on a nice roll. Now, if you are kind of wondering how the Niners may think about playing them, they are second in the entire NFL in rushing yards. Caleb is having a solid year, definitely a solid year, but he's not, he is not killing teams through the air. They're a little bit more of a balanced kind of attack. Their points for and their points against isn't fantastic. So some of this is probably very similar to what the Niners are in that some of it is just based on the fact that they're playing a lot of bad teams, and there's nothing wrong with that either, because
Well,
like you
and
said in the beginning, that you just got to play who you play.
the other thing with the Bears is their turnover ratio is bananas. They are their turnover differential. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but and that is a variable stat, but they get a lot of turnovers. So that kind of, those extra possessions definitely help. Um, so Christian, they didn't mention it on the broadcast, at least I didn't hear it. So Christian went over 1,000 yards rushing this year.
Did he? I did not.
I think
I
so.
didn't see that either. But let me see what I got. The thing I have is may not be fully updated yet. Let me see if ESPN has it. So yeah, ESPN only has it through 14 games. I wonder if they have it on his whole thing here. Um, hmm.
I had him coming in at 922.
Yeah, so it has to be because they just haven't updated
Yeah.
it yet. Because
Yeah.
that's what I see
So
is
he would
922.
so it's 112. So he needed 88 to get to 1,000. And he came into the today with 820 receiving yards, which means I'm good at math, which means he likes what he needs. Was it 118 in the next two games to go 1,000? If you follow those things or you
It's
think
gonna
those
be
things,
hard. The
I
receiving
think
yards is gonna be hard for him, I think.
yeah, well, that's 60 a game. That is he has just been um he's just been great all around. But yeah, again, in games that matter, I think that you're right that especially hopefully, this is a harbinger of things to come because you would like for him to be more of a rusher because I think a lot of it was, we were throwing him the ball so much because, well, Mac back earlier, that was kind of like his security blanket. He wants the ball out of his hand. So
He was
getting
like
it to
Phillip Rivers
Christian,
today.
right? Yeah,
Not
that
not not
and
exactly, but that was more the way that he was playing was w the second I get a pass rusher even coming close, I'm dropping that thing out of there.
And since they could not run it at all, they were trying to throw the ball to Taylor. But yeah, I hope that this wasn't just an indictment of the Colts in that they found something in terms of being able to, because that will help. That would definitely help if
Mhm.
we can have some semblance, at least against the Bears, because it's running against that Seattle defense is a whole other, doing anything against Seattle is, a chore. I mean, unless you've got like Puka Nakua. But yeah, so we don't have to worry about that until we get there. That Chicago game is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, the Seahawks have the 3rd best, runs against or, yards against per game in rushing, and, they can throw the football, they score points, they don't give up a lot of points, like, they're just a very
They're a
well-rounded
good
team,
football team. Mhm.
and, I mentioned the Bears being 11-2 since, week 3, so we beat the Seahawks all the way back in game 1. They are 12-2 since then. So we're playing 2 teams upcoming that have just been super hot. And, the Niners have been super hot as well.
Mhm.
So, it's really good great scheduling, NFL. Like, the Niners
Yeah.
themselves, they since the Rams loss, they've really the one that the one that I went to, of course. Um, they've reeled off 5 in a row, so, you're talking about 3 teams that are playing probably their best football all season long heading into the end of the year, so good stuff.
Yeah. And it's going to be an exciting close to the season. It has all the makings of, there's still a lot of things to be settled, which is awesome because it's not like that every year. And there's sometimes where you get a bunch of duds heading into week 17 and 18.
All right. Anything else you want to discuss before we drop off? And we'll be back Sunday evening after Niners Bears. Will be a fun one.
Yeah, it will be a fun one. And it's so we are Monday night, Sunday night, and if we both can manage to win, I would imagine the schedule. You always love it when when you've got the TBD
Yeah.
next to your last game of the season. So I would imagine that if we win next week and Seattle wins next week, that's going to get flexed into Sunday. You don't really get, they don't really flex Monday night, but that would probably be the last Sunday night game of the year, I would imagine.
Is there even a Monday night game in week 18 or week 17 or week 8? It would be week
Um,
18. I feel like
yeah,
everything is on Sunday because they want to set the playoff schedules on
you're
Sunday.
probably right. Yes, you
Didn't
are
didn't they
100% right.
didn't they do that last year where Detroit and Minnesota had to play in the last week of the season to determine the
Hmm.
division? And then didn't they have to play like the very next week in the wild card or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. Crazy.
Exactly. Oh, okay. I normally just look at our schedule, but everybody's TBD for
Yeah. Yeah.
week 18.
Yeah.
So nobody has a time set. So that's cool that they have given themselves maximum flexibility in terms of, getting the best matchups in prime time. Because I'm looking at the schedule now. There are a lot of potentially good games. Our game could mean something. That Bucks Panthers game
My goodness. The
could mean
Bucks.
something. That Ravens Steelers, again, call it what you want, but I mean they it can matter. That Colts, well, not at this point. I was gonna say Colts Texans. Never mind. Chargers Broncos could be something. Yeah, so yeah, there is a lot of there could be a lot of intrigue week 18, and I think that we are in a position that like I say, if the Bears and us both win next week, that would be the marquee game of the week, I think.
So Christmas Day, you have the Cowboys and the Commanders are the early game. Rough one. You have the Lions and the Vikings, the afternoon game. And you have the Broncos and the Chiefs in the evening game. The Chiefs on their third quarterback in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it was against the Titans this week. Their injury list was crazy. Nobody played. It was like you want to talk about. I was telling my brother, I was like, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. He was like, yeah, man, there's somebody over there with a sombrero on the sideline. It's over for them. But then you gotta respect them because damn. Um, five Super Bowls in 6 seasons is crazy. That is a crazy run, and you know it feels that way sometimes. Like you say, when you're on your third quarterback with ACLs 2 weeks in a row for quarterbacks, it's a pretty rough go. But
You know,
yeah,
you know what I'm gonna
I'm
blame
excited.
though?
Mhm.
The Patriots Apple TV docuseries. They waited until Brady was done, right? And the Pats were their whole thing was done. They just put out that documentary series on ESPN on the Chiefs, like, before this season started. Like,
Yeah,
they're still in their
yeah,
in their thing, and I think that jinxed them. It
yeah.
was eventually they were gonna have to pay the piper at some point. So And yeah, I would have said, can we wait until this, till this thing is over?
Exactly. You know who would have waited? Kyle, because he
Yeah.
doesn't suffer any of that kind of stuff. And I continue to wonder now that they're doing multiple multiple hard knocks. It's just a matter of time before the 49ers get it singularly or the NFC West gets it, and then the cameras are going to be there. It's just I he's going to be apoplectic. It's crazy how you go out there when I'd go out there to training camp, how anal they were about cameras.
Mhm.
Um, in terms, anytime that there was any kind of team going on, I saw people literally getting thrown out of there because he just, is just really, really, he doesn't want anything that he doesn't authorize recorded. So I don't know how that's going to work. But yeah,
Well,
this
I
is,
mean, we read in that book, or that Mike Silver book, where he was
mhm.
saying how they record, like, every conversation that happens, and they have, like, the audio thing set up in between rooms so Kyle could hit a button and yell to, like, one of the rooms, and, like, I got to imagine, like, there's some stuff on some of those tapes where they're like, "Hey, man, maybe you wanna delete that one, that thing that
Mhm.
I called that dude that name. Let's delete that one." So, before we get out of here, I don't know if you know this, there is a docu-series on the Niners coming out in February. It's on the AMC channel, of all the channels to do a
Really?
sports
Hmm.
documentary on. So February 1st and 2nd, called The Rise of the 49ers, a four-part series narrated by Tom Brady, chronicling the
Hmm.
team's 81 to 95 dynasty with legends like Joe, Jerry, and Bill Walsh. So I wonder what kind of footage they have of Bill. Um, and supposedly, so it's co-produced by AMC, Skydance, NFL Films, and something called Religion of Sports. I don't know exactly that production company. Uses rare footage and interviews to explore the legendary era and its impact. And Tom Brady is also an executive producer. So
Oh,
we'll have some Niners stuff to talk about coming soon.
that is interesting because I don't remember what sent me down that hole, but I got nostalgic for Eddie D story. So I dusted off my The Score Takes Care of Itself, Bill Walsh's book. And
Hmm.
then speaking of Tom Brady, they have a real good it's not the forward, but in the first few chapters of the Dynasty book, the Dynasty, the Patriots book, the Dynasty, there is the first few chapters covers ownership and how it started. And Eddie D is portrayed very fondly in that how differently he ran the 49ers than his peers or his predecessors. He was, Al Davis gets credit for being a renegade, but Eddie was really a renegade. And I forgot all the stories about the personal debt and the family debt that he went into building that team
Hmm.
with no you know with no guarantee that this shit was gonna pay off. At one point he's like $50 million in debt. And what if that should go what if they're the Buffalo Bills and not the San Francisco 49ers, and you have leveraged yourself the way he did? But he ran a first class organization and he took care of his people. And in the climate that we are in now with this current business management team, I long for the days of Eddie DeBartolo.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we'll be back next week talking Niners Bears Sunday night. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, a great holiday. We're only a few days away from all of that, so hopefully you all have a great week, and we will see you next week on another episode of We Want Winners. This is the last episode of the week. I do not think we're going to do a Golden State Hoop episode, though. I know the Warriors also played tonight. The big story is that somehow Draymond and Steve Kerr got into an argument, and Draymond had to go back to the locker room. So that'll be quite the story for the morning and all the podcasts and stuff. So, all righty, we'll be back. I think we're gonna try and do a Thompson to Clark at some point next week as well. So not much going on here. I'm glad we got this one in so that we could have a show this week. All right, for Ron, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.